They told me I was too old to fly to Hawaii, too frail for the sun. Then they handed me a list of chores and left. They thought the old contractor was just a worn-out caretaker. They were about to find out I don't just build houses. I demolish them too. The smell of sawdust always felt like home. It was the scent of my life. 35 years spent building dreams for other people. My name is Arthur Henderson. I'm a contractor, or I was. The real monument to my life was the house on Elm Street, a 4-bedroom colonial. I built it for Mary, my wife. Every nail, every beam was an act of love. Mary's been gone 3 years now. Cancer. It took her slowly, then all at once. Since then, the house felt too big. The silence was heavy, suffocating. The walls I built to hold laughter only echoed my solitude. I was 70 years old, rattling around in a museum of memories. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this world. That's why the Hawaii trip meant so much. It was Chloe, my daughter, who suggested it. A grand family vacation. Chloe, her husband Mark, my 2 grandchildren, Emma and Liam, and me. It was the first time we would all be together since Mary died. I was ecstatic. I imagined teaching Liam how to snorkel, watching Emma dance on the beach. I imagined the sun baking the sadness out of my bones. I packed weeks ago. I bought new sandals, a brightly colored shirt Mary would have teased me about. I practiced saying aloha. I was ready for a new beginning. I just didn't realize how new it would be. It was the day before our flight. I was in the kitchen, making a sandwich. Through the window I saw their silver SUV pull into the driveway. Sleek, expensive. It glided to a stop. I felt a surge of excitement. The adventure was beginning. I walked to the front door. A wide smile plastered on my face. I pulled it open. The atmosphere shifted instantly. It was like opening an oven door, but instead of heat, I felt a blast of cold air. Chloe stepped inside. Her sunglasses stayed on, even in the dim hallway. Mark followed, already barking into his phone. No, I said 3%. If they don't agree, we walk. Simple. Mark worked in finance. Something complicated, aggressive. He always seemed to be on the verge of closing $1 million deal or firing someone, like it was diseased. The way he'd ask Emily if I was comfortable in their guest room. Comfortable. Like I was a stray dog they'd taken in out of pity. And his parents, Richard and Susan, were worse. They were the blueprints for Kevin's arrogance. Richard looked at my shop as if it were a junkyard, a blight on the town. Susan wrinkled her nose when I talked about engine blocks or carburetors. They hated me because I didn't fit. I didn't belong in their world of crystal glasses, stock portfolios, and manicured lawns. I was the blue-collar embarrassment, the grease stain on their perfect white carpet, and they never let me forget it. The invitation arrived a week ago, printed on paper so thick it felt like a ceramic tile, expensive. Cold, a formal dinner at Kevin and Emily's new house, a massive, sprawling place in the gated community on the hill. It was a house built not for comfort, but for show. A monument to Kevin's ego. I stared at the fancy script. My stomach tightened. I knew what this was. It wasn't a family dinner, it was a performance. And I had a role to play. The role of the supportive father, the respectable patriarch. They wanted me there, but they didn't want me. They wanted a version of me that didn't exist. A version that wasn't stained. Emily called me right after I got it. Her voice, usually so bright, sounded tight, strained, like a wire pulled too taut. "Dad, you have to come," she pleaded. "I'll be there, sweetheart." "You know I will," I said. I tried to inject a cheerfulness I didn't feel. "It's really important for Kevin," she continued. "Vital, actually. Vital." That was one of Kevin's words. I knew this was serious. But I didn't know the whole truth yet. The real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. "And Dad?" Emily paused. I could hear the hesitation, the fear of asking too much. "Please, try to be on time." Kevin gets so stressed about punctuality. Stressed, another word for angry. Controlling. "And maybe wear the new blue suit," she added quietly. The new blue suit, the one I bought for her wedding. It felt stiff, unnatural, like a costume. I hated that suit. I hated what it represented pretending. "Of course, honey," I agreed. I always agreed. For her, I remembered the day she married him. Her best friend, Anna, pulled me aside at the reception. Anna was always blunt, a lawyer with a sharp eye for deceit. "George, watch him," Anna had whispered, gripping my arm. "He's manipulative. He isolates her." "I don't trust him. His numbers don't add up." I dismissed it then. I thought Anna was just being overprotective. I thought Kevin was just ambitious. I was wrong. I realized that now. Anna saw the thirsts I was blind to. "Kevin says they are hosting a very important guest tonight," Emily had continued on the phone, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A potential investor for his new company. Mrs. Hanover. She's a legend in the industry." "A legend. Great. More pressure. His parents are frantic. He's on edge. This deal could change everything for us, Dad. Everything. Everything." I knew what that meant. It meant I had to be invisible. Silent. Perfect. I had to be someone else. And I was already exhausted from the effort. The day of the dinner arrived, gray and heavy. The sky looked bruised. A cold rain started around noon and hadn't let up. It was the kind of rain that soaked right through your coat, into your bones. I closed the shop early, around 4 p.m. The silence in the garage felt heavy, ominous. I went home. The house was quiet, too quiet. Sarah's presence was everywhere, her favorite mug on the counter, her shawl draped over the armchair. I went to the bathroom. I spent nearly an hour scrubbing my hands, heavy-duty soap, the orange stuff with the grit. My skin felt raw, red, but the shadows of grease remained. They always remained. They were part of me. I dug the blue suit out of the closet. It hung there, accusingly. I put it on. The fabric scratched against my skin. The collar felt too tight, like a noose closing around my neck. I looked in the mirror. I saw a tired 58-year-old man. A man pretending. A fraud in a cheap suit. I picked up the small framed photo of Sarah from the dresser. Her smile warmed me, but it also broke my heart. "Wish me luck, Sarah," I whispered. My voice cracked. I'm walking into the lion's den. I knew what she would say. "Be yourself, George. That's who I love." But tonight, being myself was the last thing they wanted. I grabbed my keys and stepped out into the miserable weather. The wind whipped the rain sideways. It felt like needles against my face. I got into my old, reliable pickup truck. It was clean. I'd spent hours detailing it, but it was still a work truck. Scratches on the bumper, dents in the tailgate. It didn't belong in that gated community. It belonged at the shop, just like me. The drive was supposed to be 40 minutes, but in this rain, at least an hour, maybe more. The wipers squeaked back and forth, a losing battle against the deluge. The highway was slick, oil and water mixed under the streetlights, blurry halos of light everywhere. Traffic was crawling, bumper to bumper, red taillights stretching into the distance. A river of frustration. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. Anxiety churned in my gut, a cold, heavy feeling. I was already cutting it close. The thought of walking in late, facing the cold stares, the judgment, my chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. Just get through the evening, George. Smile, nod, stay invisible. Don't be you. I thought about Kevin, about his desperation. A few months ago, an eviction notice appeared on my shop door. My landlord, Mr. Peterson, a stern but usually fair man, looked worried when I called him. "Your rent is late, George. 3 months late," Peterson had said, his voice gruff. I was confused. I always paid on time. Kevin had offered to handle my books, to help me modernize, to take the burden off me. Kevin took care of it. He said it was a banking error. He apologized profusely. He seemed so sincere. He showed me transfer statements. But now, sitting in this traffic, knowing how vital this investor was, I started to wonder, was Kevin financially stable? Or was he drowning? And was he pulling me down with him? The thought chilled me more than the rain. I was about halfway there, on a quieter stretch of the highway. The part that wound up towards the hills, where the rich people lived. The rain was coming down harder now. A solid sheet of water. Then I saw it, on the narrow shoulder of the highway. An expensive-looking sedan. dark gray, sleek. It was tilted awkwardly. Steam curled up from the hood, mixing with the rain. Hazard lights blinking weakly, almost apologizing. It looked helpless. Standing next to the car was a woman. She was struggling with a small, flimsy umbrella. The wind was winning the battle. She looked to be around my age, maybe 60. She was peering helplessly at a completely flat tire. Her elegantly styled gray hair was plastered to her face. She looked utterly stranded, lost. My foot eased off the gas. My first instinct, the instinct born of anxiety, screamed at me. "Keep driving, George. You're late. You're wearing the blue suit." Emily's voice echoed in my head. "Please, Dad. Be on time." Kevin's voice followed. "Priority, George. Priority. If I stopped, I'd be late. I'd be dirty. I'd ruin the image." Emily was desperate to project. Kevin would use it as proof. Proof that I was incompetent, unreliable, a mess. This was the perfect excuse for him to cut me out completely. But leaving her there, stranded in this dangerous storm, it was an accident waiting to happen. I looked at the woman again. She looked so small against the storm, so vulnerable. Sarah's voice whispered in my memory. "Always help George. Always." I couldn't live with myself if I drove past. I couldn't live with the kind of person who valued a dinner party over someone's safety. I signaled and pulled my truck onto the shoulder. The gravel crunched under my tires. I took a deep breath. This was it. The night was officially ruined before it even began. I stepped out of the truck. The rain hit me instantly. Cold, sharp, soaking my blue suit trousers in seconds. The wind ripped at my jacket. The cold seeped into my bones. "Having some trouble, ma'am?" I called out. The noise of the rain and the traffic was deafening. She turned, startled, her face etched with distress. Relief washed over her when she saw me. "Oh, thank goodness. Yes," she shouted over the wind. "My tire blew out. I think I hit something in the road." She held up her phone helplessly. "And my phone is dead." I tried to call for help, but it just went black. She looked completely overwhelmed. She was dressed for a party, not a crisis. "Let me take a look," I offered, walking towards the front of her car. I knew this was going to be bad. I surveyed the damage. It wasn't just a flat. The sidewall was shredded, torn to pieces, and the rim itself, bent, dented deep, and the steam from the hood. The engine had overheated. This wasn't a quick fix. This was a disaster. "This is a tough one," I said, shouting over the wind. "The spare might not sit right with this bent rim. We need to be careful." "Oh dear," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "I have a very important meeting tonight. A dinner engagement. I simply cannot be late. It's crucial. Crucial. Important." The same words Emily used. "I know the feeling," I muttered. If she only knew. I went back to my truck. I grabbed my toolbox. Heavy, solid, familiar. My tools felt comforting in my hands. This was my world. Grease and metal, problems and solutions. I was wearing my good shoes, the ones for weddings and funerals. They were now sinking into the thick mud on the shoulder, ruined. I didn't care. I had a job to do. I got to work. The rain was relentless. It dripped off my nose, down the back of my collar, plastering the suit jacket to my skin. The blue fabric was turning black with water and grime. The lug nuts were rusted tight. They hadn't been turned in years. I had to put my back into it, using all my strength. My muscles strained. My breath came in short gasps. This was taking too long. Way too long. I thought about calling a tow truck, waiting, but it might take hours in this weather. The highways were jammed. She was desperate, and I had the skills to fix it. Now, I had to finish what I started. That's what I do. I fix things, even when it cost me everything. I struggled with the jack. The ground was uneven, muddy. It kept sinking, slipping dangerously. I needed something flat, stable. I searched the ditch nearby, found a broken piece of plywood, waterlogged, slimy. I wedged it under the jack, stabilized it, It took me nearly 30 minutes just to get the car lifted safely. My muscles were burning. I was breathing heavily. My heart pounded in my chest. Not just from the effort, from the realization of how late I was getting. Grease and mud splashed up onto my shirt cuffs. The front of my jacket. I looked like I'd been digging a grave. Maybe I was. The woman, whose name I learned was Margaret, tried to hold the umbrella over me, but the wind kept whipping it around, useless. "Please, you're getting absolutely soaked," she said. Her voice was full of genuine concern, not pity. Concern. "You're ruining your suit." "The suit will dry," I said, grunting, as I pulled the heavy, ruined tire off. "It weighed a ton. Let's just worry about getting you back on the road." I didn't tell her the suit was already ruined. The suit didn't matter. Getting her safe mattered. I managed to mount the spare tire. The donut, small and weak. As I suspected, the bent rim made it difficult. It didn't sit flush. I tightened the nuts carefully, making sure it was secure, but it wasn't perfect. "You'll have to drive slow on this," I told her, lowering the jack. "No more than 40 miles an hour, and get that rim replaced tomorrow. First thing." But the tire was only half the problem. Before closing the hood, I checked the engine. The coolant reservoir was nearly empty. Bone dry. The overheating was serious. The engine could have seized up. Luckily, I always kept extra coolant in a funnel in my truck, a mechanic's habit. I filled it up. The sweet smell of antifreeze mixing with the metallic scent of the rain. That's when everything went wrong. Again. As I tightened the radiator cap, my wrench slipped. The metal was slick with rain and grease. It slammed my knuckles against the hot engine block. Pain shot up my arm. Hot, sharp pain. Burning. I hissed through my teeth. I pulled my hand back, instinctively. I knew I was bleeding. I looked down, blood mixed with the grease and the rain. The skin was torn open. Raw. Now I was injured. Filthy. And incredibly late. This night was turning into a complete catastrophe. A nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I tightened the cap securely. My hands were now completely coated. Grime, grease, mud, blood. I looked like a monster from a horror movie. Finally, after nearly an hour of hard labor in the pouring rain, the job was done. I was exhausted. I leaned against the side of her car, catching my breath. The rain felt good on my burning knuckles. I looked down at myself, drenched, head to toe. My blue suit, the one Emily insisted I wear, destroyed. I looked like I had been wrestling a bear in an oil pit. There was no way I could go to the dinner now. No way. Margaret looked at me, her eyes wide with gratitude. She seemed to be a woman of composure, elegant, refined, but her relief was palpable. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice steady now, stronger. "You are a lifesaver. Everyone else just drove right past." I was starting to panic. "It's what I do," I said, wiping my hands on a rag from my toolbox. It did little good. It just smeared the grease around. "Please, you must let me pay you," she insisted. She reached for her purse on the passenger seat. It was expensive leather. "For your time. And for your suit." "It's ruined." "No, ma'am," I said firmly. My pride wouldn't allow it. I wasn't a charity case. Helping someone out shouldn't come with a price tag. "Just promise me you'll drive slow and that's spare." Money didn't fix everything. It certainly wouldn't fix the mess I was in. She hesitated, looking at me with a sharp, observant gaze, like she was sizing me up, assessing me, seeing past the grime. "You are a very kind man," she said slowly. "A rare quality. What is your name?" "George Miller." "Thank you, George Miller. I won't forget this." I had a feeling she meant it. I watched her get into her car. The engine turned over smoothly. A quiet purr. She gave me one last wave and pulled back onto the highway. Slowly, carefully. I stood there for a moment, watching her taillights disappear into the rain. I felt a strange sense of accomplishment. I had done the right thing. But that feeling didn't last long. I got back into my truck. The leather seats squelched underneath me. Water dripped from my hair onto the dashboard. I turned the heater on full blast, but I was chilled to the bone, a cold that had nothing to do with the rain. I checked the time on the dashboard clock. The glowing green numbers mocked me. I was an hour and a half late. My heart sank. The dread returned. Heavier, colder. This was going to be bad. Very bad. I drove the rest of the way to the gated community. My stomach twisted into knots. The drive felt agonizingly long. An eternity. I kept looking at my hands on the steering wheel. The filth embedded under my nails. The blood still oozing from my knuckles. I tried to rub the grease off my jacket. Useless. I just made it worse. I thought about calling Emily, warning her. But what could I say? I ruined the suit. I'm late. I look like a homeless person. No. I had to face the music. I had to see my daughter. When I arrived at the gates, the security guard looked at me. He was a young guy, crisp uniform. He looked at my old truck with open suspicion. Like I was there to rob the place. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked. His tone clipped. Disdainful. "I'm here for a dinner party," I said. "At the Davis residence." He scrutinized me, taking in my disheveled appearance, my wet hair, my muddy clothes. He raised an eyebrow. He didn't believe me. I could feel his judgment. A physical weight. He reluctantly buzzed me through. The massive iron gates swung open, slowly, threateningly. The houses in this neighborhood were enormous, brightly lit against the dark, stormy night. They weren't homes. They were monuments. Monuments to wealth, to status, to everything I wasn't. I finally found the address. A sprawling, modern house. All glass and sharp angles, cold, impersonal. It looked like a museum. Several expensive cars were arrayed in the circular driveway. Mercedes, BMWs, a Lexus. I noticed a familiar black sedan tucked away near the side entrance. It belonged to David Chen, Kevin's business partner. A shark in a cheap suit, just like Kevin. My truck didn't belong here. I didn't belong here. I parked my truck on the street, hoping to hide it from view, hoping to hide myself. I started the long walk up the driveway. The gravel crunched under my ruined shoes, loudly, announcing my arrival. I felt small, dirty, completely out of place. The rain was slowed to a drizzle, but I was already soaked. I reached the front door, a massive oak structure, frosted glass panels. I could hear the sounds of the dinner party from inside, soft classical music, the clinking of glasses, polite laughter, the sound of a world I was about to disrupt. I hesitated. I should just leave. Go home. Avoid the humiliation waiting inside. I could apologize to Emily tomorrow. Tell her I got sick. Tell her anything but the truth. But if I didn't show up at all, they'd say I didn't care enough to try. They'd say I abandoned her. I had to face them. For Emily. I took a deep breath, wiped my sweaty palms on my already ruined trousers, and rang the doorbell. The laughter stopped. Abruptly, the music faded slightly. Silence. Heavy. Expectant. The door swung open. It was Kevin. He was wearing a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. His hair was slicked back. He held a crystal glass of wine. His polished smile vanished. Instantly, his eyes traveled slowly from my muddy shoes, up my soaked and stained suit, to my dripping wet hair. He didn't say anything for a long moment. The silence stretched, tense, uncomfortable. His expression morphed, shock, then disgust, pure, unadulterated disgust. "George?" he hissed. He looked back over his shoulder nervously, into the house. "What in the world happened to you?" His voice was low, sharp, like a knife. "I'm sorry, Kevin. I know I'm very late," I started, my voice hoarse, tired. There was an incident on the highway. I had to stop and help. He cut me off. "Help? Look at you." He stepped closer, wrinkling his nose. "You look like a homeless person who fell in a ditch." He sniffed the air. "You smell like wet dog and engine grease." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood there, dripping on his expensive marble floor. The shame washed over me. Cold, paralyzing. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't meet his eyes. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was just a mess. Before I could respond, Richard appeared. Kevin's father. A large man, imposing, impeccably dressed. A permanent expression of disapproval etched on his face. Kevin, who is it? Is it Mrs. Hanover? Has she finally arrived? Richard boomed. His voice filled the hallway. Then he saw me. Good God! It's George, Kevin said. His voice tight with fury, barely concealed. I can see that, Richard sneered. He looked me up and down, like I was a piece of rotten meat. Why is he here looking like that? We have guests, Kevin. Important guests. He glared at me, his eyes burning with hatred. The most important guest of your career. The hostility rolled off them. In waves. Hot, suffocating waves. I know how I look. I apologize. I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to maintain some semblance of dignity. I was helping a woman with a flat tire in the rain. It took longer than I expected. I was explaining myself, defending myself, to these people who despised me. A flat tire? Kevin scoffed, his voice rising now. He didn't care who heard him. You stopped for a flat tire? Tonight? Do you have any concept of priority? His face was red, twisted with anger. Any idea how important tonight is for me? For this family? Then Richard dropped the bomb, the accusation that cut the deepest. He did it on purpose, Richard declared suddenly. He pointed a finger at me, a thick, accusing finger. He's always resented our success. He wants to sabotage the evening. He stepped closer, his voice dripping with venom, to embarrass us in front of Mrs. Hanover. Sabotage? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was malicious. Cruel. That's absurd, I protested, my voice rising in disbelief, anger replacing the shame. I'm a mechanic. It's what I do. I help people. It's what you are, George, Richard corrected me, his voice filled with contempt. A low-class grease monkey. He leaned in, his breath hot on my face. And tonight you've finally shown your true colors. Low-class grease monkey. The words echoed in the large, empty hallway. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, a physical ache. I had heard these insults before. Subtle jabs, veiled comments. But this open hostility, this raw hatred, it felt sharper, deeper, it felt final. Then I saw her, Emily. She appeared in the hallway, wearing a stunning silver dress. She looked beautiful, like a princess in a castle, but her face was pale. Her eyes were wide with panic. Dad, she whispered, her voice trembling. She saw me. She saw the state I was in, and she didn't smile. She didn't look relieved. She looked horrified. Emily, sweetheart, I said, taking a step forward. Relief washed over me. She would understand. She would defend me. She was my daughter. Kevin put his arm out, blocking me, his hand pressing against my chest. Hard. Don't you dare take another step inside, he hissed. You will not track mud all over the house. You will not ruin this evening. His eyes were cold, dead. Kevin, let him in. He's my father, Emily pleaded, but her voice was weak, hesitant. She wasn't fighting for me. She was begging. I looked at her, waiting, praying for her to stand up to them, to stand up for me. Choose me, Emily. Please. But she just stood there, paralyzed. Fear, embarrassment. She refused to meet my eyes. In that moment, she chose them. She chose their world over me. The realization shattered my heart, broke it into a million pieces, scattered on the cold marble floor. He's a disgrace, Emily, Kevin shouted, turning on her. His voice sharp, cruel. Look at him. Mrs. Hanover will be here any minute. The CEO of the investment firm, the woman who holds the future of my company in her hands. He gestured at me, like I was garbage. What will she think if she sees this? This mess. He wasn't just talking about my clothes. He was talking about me. Then came the ultimatum. The final nail in the coffin. You have to choose, Emily, Kevin continued, his voice cold, final. Either he goes or the dinner is over. And if the dinner is over, so is my deal. He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. Heavy, suffocating. So is this lifestyle you love so much? He was blackmailing her, emotionally blackmailing her, using her fear of losing everything against me. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't move. She didn't speak. Her silence was a betrayal, sharper than any words, louder than any scream. My own daughter was ashamed of me. Susan, Kevin's mother, joined the group. She took one look at me and gasped. A dramatic, exaggerated gasp. She covered her mouth with her jeweled hand. "He cannot stay," Susan said, her voice trembling with indignation. "Richard, make him leave." She wrinkled her nose. "He smells offensive." Offensive. I was offensive to them. The four of them stood there. A wall of judgment. Hostility. My own daughter was among them. Trapped, unwilling to defend me. Unwilling to love me. "I just wanted to apologize for being late," I said, my voice cracking. The fight draining out of me. Defeat settling in. I didn't mean to cause a scene. I was apologizing again. Apologizing for existing. "We don't want your apologies, George," Kevin said, his voice cold and final. "We want you gone. You don't belong here. You never did." He looked me straight in the eye. No remorse. No regret. "You're an anchor dragging us down. An anchor." That's what I was to them. Dead weight. He stepped forward, grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, painful. "Get out, now." He started pulling me away from the door, back towards the porch. Like I was trash, garbage to be disposed of. As he pulled me, I glanced towards the living room. I saw David Chun, Kevin's partner, standing near the window, half hidden by the curtain. He wasn't looking at me with disgust. He was looking at Kevin with pure panic. His face was pale, sweaty. He knew how close they were to the edge. This wasn't just ambition. This was desperation. And I was the scapegoat. "Kevin, stop," Emily cried, tears streaming down her face. But she still didn't move. She didn't stop him. She just watched. "It's for the best, darling," Susan said, putting a comforting arm around Emily. Her eyes remained fixed on me. Disgust. Kevin pulled me out onto the porch, back into the rain. The cold water hit me again, but it felt different this time. It wasn't just rain. It was rejection. Humiliation. "Don't come back until you learn how to behave in polite society," Kevin snarled. He shoved me away, hard. I stumbled, barely catching my balance on the wet stone steps. My injured hand throbbed. My heart ached. "And don't call Emily tonight," Kevin added, his voice dripping with venom. "She's upset enough because of you." He paused, delivering the final blow. "In fact, don't call her at all until we call you." He was cutting me off, isolating me, taking my daughter away from me. He slammed the massive oak door shut. The sound echoed in the quiet night, heavy, final. The lock clicked. I stood there, alone, in the driveway of my daughter's house. The rain plastered the ruined blue suit to my skin. The grease and mud felt like a physical manifestation of their contempt. I looked at the glowing house, full of light, warmth, laughter, and felt utterly empty, hollowed out. They were right. I didn't belong there. I was just a grease monkey, a disgrace, an anchor. A wave of anger surged through me, a desire to storm back in there, to tell them exactly what I thought of their shallow, cruel world, to fight for my daughter, to fight for myself. But the fight had gone out of me. I was too tired, too broken. Defeat felt absolute, heavy, crushing. Tears mixed with the rain on my face. I had never felt so worthless, so utterly alone in my life. If this story is hitting home for you, if you've ever felt judged or looked down upon, please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know to share these stories. It helps me know I'm not just talking to the wind. I turned slowly, ready to walk back to my old truck, to my empty house, to my lonely life. The walk down the long driveway felt like a funeral procession, my own funeral, but then something happened. Something I never expected. Just as I reached the street, headlights swept across the driveway. A car was pulling up, slowly, cautiously. I recognized it instantly. My heart stopped. It was the dark gray sedan, the one I had repaired on the highway. It was Margaret, and I knew, with sudden, horrifying certainty, who Margaret was. She was Mrs. Hanover, the important guest, the investor, the legend. She parked right behind my truck. She got out of the car. Elegant. Composed. She must have stopped somewhere to freshen up. Her presence radiated authority, power. I froze, mortified. This was the final humiliation. The universe playing a cruel joke. Now she would see me, thrown out like trash. By the very people she was here to meet. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. I wanted to disappear. The front door of the house flew open again. Kevin, Richard, and Susan rushed out, their faces instantly transformed. The hostility gone, replaced by masks. Fake warmth, welcoming smiles. They practically tripped over themselves rushing down the steps, fawning, groveling. Mrs. Hanover. "Welcome. We are so delighted you could make it," Kevin said. His voice smooth, charming, dripping with sincerity he didn't possess. He extended his hand towards her. "We were so worried the storm might have delayed you. They didn't even see me. I was invisible again." Margaret ignored his hand completely. Her eyes swept across the scene, the opulent house, the fawning family, and then they landed on me, standing at the edge of the street, soaked, defeated. Her expression changed. Instantly, the elegant composure softened, replaced by genuine concern, recognition. "George," she called out, her voice clear, strong, over the sound of the rain. Kevin, Richard, and Susan froze. Their smiles faltered. But this was war, and in war, secrecy is a weapon. I chose survival. "Just doing a major renovation, Mrs. Jenkins," I said, forcing a smile. It felt unnatural on my face, clearing everything out before the construction starts. Chloe organized it all. A surprise for me. She seemed satisfied. "Oh, how wonderful! Chloe is such a good daughter." She walked away, already composing the story in her head. "The close call rattled me. We had to move faster. Robert called me that afternoon. 'Arthur, we need to cover all our bases,' he said, his voice serious. 'Mark and Chloe are claiming cognitive decline. We need to prove them wrong.' Unequivocally. 'How do we do that?' 'I've scheduled an appointment for you with Dr. Chen,' Robert explained. 'She's one of the top geriatric psychiatrists in the state. She will conduct a full evaluation. Her report will be our shield.' I met Dr. Chen the next day. She was a calm, intelligent woman with piercing eyes. She asked me questions for hours. Memory tests, logic puzzles, questions about my life, my mood, my plans. I answered honestly. I told her about Mary, about Chloe, about the betrayal. At the end of the evaluation, she smiled faintly. 'Mr. Henderson,' she said, 'you are grieving. You are under immense stress. But you are perfectly competent, of sound mind. In fact, you are sharper than most men half your age.' The report was finalized. Ironclad, we had our shield. Now we needed to finish the fight. Later that day, my phone rang. I was packing the last few boxes. My heart leaped when I saw the caller ID. Chloe. I hadn't spoken to her since they left. I knew I had to maintain the facade, play the role of the confused old man one last time. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello?" My voice hesitant. "Dad? How are you doing?" Her voice was cheerful, an artificial sweetness that set my teeth on edge. I could hear the sound of waves and laughter in the background. They were enjoying their paradise, oblivious to the storm brewing back home. "I'm fine," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Taking care of the house." "Good, good." A pause. "Hey, can you do me a favor?" Mark was wondering about the property survey. "Do you know where it is?" "The survey?" I asked, feigning confusion. "Yes, the property survey," she repeated, a hint of impatience in her voice. "We were thinking of putting in a pool when we get back. We need to check the boundary lines." A pool. They were already spending the money they hadn't yet stolen. They were so sure of themselves, so arrogant in their assumptions. They truly believed the house was already theirs. The audacity of the question almost made me snap. I wanted to scream at her, to confront her with the truth of her betrayal, to tell her that the house was sold, but I knew that a premature confrontation would jeopardize everything. Robert had warned me. Any sign of conflict could give Mark grounds to file an emergency injunction. Stop the sale. I had to swallow my rage. It burned like acid in my throat. I'm not sure, Chloe. I lied smoothly. The words felt greasy in my mouth. It's probably in the filing cabinet. The filing cabinet had been emptied 3 days ago. It was currently in the donation truck. Okay, can you check? It's important. Her tone was demanding now. I'll look later, I said dismissively. I'm busy cleaning the gutters, like you asked. She sighed, the impatience clear. All right. Well, we miss you. The kids say hi. She hung up quickly. Before I could respond, she didn't miss me. She was checking on her investment, and I was just the unreliable maintenance man. The day of the closing arrived, 2 days before they were due back. The house was empty, echoing. It looked sterile, stripped of the life we had filled it with. It wasn't a home anymore. It was just a structure. Walls and floors and ceilings. Robert met me there with the closing documents. Sarah was there too. A notary was waiting. I signed the papers. The pen felt heavy in my hand, but my signature was steady. The wire transfer was initiated. The money from the sale, combined with Mary's secret trust. It was wired into a new, secure offshore trust account that Robert had set up. An account Mark and Chloe could never find, never touch. It was protected by layers of legal firewalls. Ironclad, the house was officially gone. I walked through the empty rooms one last time. My footsteps echoed in the silence. It felt like I was burying Mary all over again, burying the last 40 years of my life. Before I left, I looked out the front window, at the rose bush Mary had planted by the front porch. It was blooming, vibrant red against the backdrop of the empty house. The developers were going to demolish the house the next day. The rose bush would be destroyed, crushed under the weight of the excavators. I felt a pang of regret. It was the last living piece of Mary's legacy on this land. I considered asking the developers to save it, to transplant it, but I realized that I needed a clean break. No attachment, no remnants of the past. The past was tainted. I walked outside. I touched a rose, the petals soft under my fingers. Goodbye, Mary, I whispered. I left the keys on the kitchen counter, exactly where I had found their appraisal papers. A final, silent message. I locked the door and walked away. I didn't look back. I checked into a hotel near the airport. I wasn't going to stay in the same city. Waiting for the fallout. I needed distance, a new life. I was going to Florida, a small condo by the sea. Robert had found for me. A place where I could heal, where I could start over. They were due back the next day. The storm was about to hit. I flew to Florida the next morning. The flight was smooth. I watched the clouds drift by, feeling a strange sense of detachment. I had dismantled my life in 2 weeks. Everything I knew, everything I owned. It was terrifying, but also exhilarating. I was free. I checked into my new condo. It was small, bright, overlooking the ocean. The air was warm, the breeze gentle. It was simple. It was enough. I sat on the balcony, watching the waves roll in. And I waited. The anticipation was a tight knot in my stomach. That afternoon, it started. My phone buzzed on the small glass table next to me. Chloe's number. I ignored it. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again. Chloe, then Mark, then Chloe again. The calls came in rapid succession, a frantic drumbeat of panic. Voicemails piled up. Text messages flooded in, increasingly desperate, increasingly enraged. I knew what they had found. The developers hadn't waited. The demolition had started immediately. They were efficient, ruthless, just like Mark. I read the text messages. Dad? Where are you? There's a sold sign on the lawn and the locks are changed. Arthur, call me back. Immediately. What the hell is going on? Dad, the neighbors say you moved out. There are construction people here. They are tearing down the porch. The later messages were hysterical.
Pure panic. The house is gone.
There's nothing here but dirt. What did you do? You ruined everything. Call me now, I imagined the scene. The silver SUV pulling into the driveway, fresh from the airport, tanned and relaxed. The confusion when they saw the construction fence. The disbelief when they saw the heavy machinery. The slow dawning realization that the inheritance they had counted on, the asset they had planned to seize, had vanished. The house was literally gone, reduced to rubble, dust. Their future, built on my past, had crumbled by the time the sun started to set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the colors Mary loved. I had 83 missed calls. I silenced the phone. I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me, a stillness I hadn't felt in years. They had tried to make me small, to discard me, to reduce me to a caretaker of their future wealth. But they had forgotten one thing. I was a builder, and sometimes, before you can build something new, you have to tear down what is broken. The calls eventually stopped. The furious voicemails were replaced by silence, a heavy, stunned silence. A week later, a formal letter arrived. Certified mail, from Mark's lawyer, Mr. Davis. It was filled with legal threats, accusations of fraud, demanding the proceeds of the sale. They claimed I was mentally unfit, that I had been manipulated. Robert handled it swiftly. I called him after reading the letter. They have no case, Arthur, Robert told me over the phone. His voice was calm, reassuring. We have Dr. Chen's evaluation. The report confirms you are of sound mind and perfectly competent. The sale was legal. The offshore trust is ironclad. What if they try to sue? I asked. If they try to sue, we will countersue for attempted elder abuse, Robert said firmly. Based on those emails, they won't risk the exposure. Their reputation would be ruined. They had nothing. Robert suggested a video mediation meeting, a final confrontation. To sever ties cleanly, legally, I agreed. I needed them to see my face. I needed them to see that I was not the confused old man they thought I was. I needed them to see that they had lost. I sat in my bright new living room when the video call connected. The Florida sun streamed through the windows. Chloe and Mark were sitting in what looked like a cramped office. The lighting was harsh. Fluorescent, their luxurious lifestyle seemed to have evaporated quickly. Chloe looked pale, exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. The tan had faded. Mark was simmering with rage, his face red and tight, his jaw clenched. How could you? Chloe burst out as soon as the connection stabilized. Her voice was shrill, laced with hysteria. That was our home. That was my childhood. You destroyed everything. No, Chloe, I said quietly, my voice calm and steady. The calmness felt foreign, but strong. That was my home, the home I built for your mother. I paused, letting the words sink in. It stopped being your home when you decided I was an obstacle to be removed. When you decided I was too old. We were trying to protect you, Mark snarled. He leaned towards the camera, his face contorted with fury. That house was too much for you to handle. We were going to take care of you. You were ungrateful and selfish. Protect me? I asked, my voice cold. I held up the appraisal papers and the emails about power of attorney and guardianship. I had kept the originals. Is this how you protect me, Mark? By plotting to take over my life? By convincing my daughter that I am incompetent? I looked directly at the camera. By planning to declare me unfit so you could put in a pool. Chloe looked at the papers and then looked away. A flicker of shame crossed her face. Before it was quickly masked by defiance, Mark just glared. His silence was more damning than his words. You stole our inheritance, Mark said, his voice low and venomous. That money belongs to us. We earned it. Earned it how? I asked, genuinely curious. By waiting for me to die? By manufacturing lies about my mental health? I shook my head. Inheritance is a gift, not a right. And I decided not to give it to you. You underestimated me. You thought I was just an old man, easily confused. I looked directly at Chloe, my heart aching with the finality of the moment. This was the last time I would ever see my daughter. Your mother knew, Chloe, I said softly. I found her letters. I found the lockbox. Chloe's eyes widened in shock. She saw who you were.
Mark was.
Long before I did. She warned me about your greed years ago. She protected me from you. The realization that her mother had seen her true nature, that her mother had anticipated her betrayal. It seemed to shatter the last of her defenses. It was the one judgment she couldn't escape. She started to cry. Soft, broken sobs. You will regret this, old man. Mark spat, his voice dripping with venom. He ignored Chloe's tears. You will die alone and miserable. I'd rather be alone with my dignity than surrounded by vultures waiting for me to die, I said. I looked at them one last time. You told me to take care of the house, so I did. I took care of it permanently. I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but I felt a profound sense of closure. It was over. The war was won. The fallout for Chloe and Mark was significant. Robert told me later that they were drowning in debt. They had overleveraged themselves, bought the expensive SUV, the designer clothes, the lavish vacation, counting on the house to bail them out. It had to sell everything, move into a small apartment. Their perfect life crumbled under the weight of their own greed. I didn't feel joy in their misery. I felt a deep, aching sadness for the family we could have been, for the daughter I had lost. A few weeks later, I was sitting on the beach, the sand warm beneath my feet, the sun warm on my face. I was learning how to fish again. My phone buzzed. It was a video call request from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered it. Grandpa. Emma's face filled the screen, her smile bright and genuine. Liam crowded in next to her. They looked like they were hiding in their room. Their voices hushed. Hey kiddos, how are you? My heart leaped with a joy so pure it hurt. We miss you, Grandpa. Liam said, Mom and Dad are fighting all the time. It's scary. They said we can't talk to you, Emma whispered. We stole Mom's phone. I miss you too, I said softly, my heart aching for them, trapped in the wreckage their parents created. But you can call me anytime, on this number. It's our secret. Okay, they nodded eagerly. Look where I am, I said, turning the phone around to show them the ocean. The waves crashing on the shore. Wow, it looks like Hawaii, Emma exclaimed. It's Florida, I explained. I moved here, a smaller place, right by the sea. Can we visit? Emma asked, her eyes wide with hope. I smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile, the first real smile in months. I'd love that, I said. Robert, my lawyer, is arranging it. We're establishing a trust fund for your education, and we are setting up visitation rights. Your parents can't stop it. Their faces lit up. You'll come visit me this summer, I promised. We'll build the biggest sandcastle on the beach, and I'll teach you how to snorkel. We talked for an hour, about school, about their friends, about the ocean. It was just us, grandfather and grandchildren, the true meaning of family, love, untainted by greed. When we hung up, I looked out at the ocean. The waves kept rolling in, eternal and powerful, reshaping the shore. Life was like that. It could be cruel and destructive. It could tear down everything you built, but it also offered endless opportunities to rebuild, to start over. I was 70 years old. My daughter had betrayed me. My house was gone. But as I sat there, feeling the sea breeze and the warmth of the sun, I realized I wasn't too old. I wasn't slowing down. I was just getting started, and this time, I was building a life just for me. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.